There is a moment each night when the world begins to fade. The ceiling above you turns to mist. The hum of the day dissolves into a single quiet note, and something inside you loosens. Your breath slows until it feels like the ocean gently returning to shore. Again and again, in that delicate borderland, you are neither awake nor asleep. You are standing at the threshold between two worlds, the world that measures time and sound, and the other that forgets both. It is here, in this quiet pause, that dreams are born. At first, it feels like falling, but softly, like drifting backward into water that perfectly remembers the shape of your body. The weight of consciousness begins to melt, and the voice in your head that narrates your every thought slowly fades. You begin to see flickers of color, vague outlines of shapes, people, and memories rearranging themselves in ways that make no sense and yet feel strangely familiar. This is the first breath of dreaming, a whisper from the part of you that never sleeps. When you close your eyes, the mind does not go dark. It becomes a theater without walls, where everything you have ever seen, felt, or imagined begins to perform. Every sound you have forgotten, every color you have ever loved, waits behind that invisible curtain. And when the stage lights of consciousness dim, the show begins again, written, directed, and acted by the secret self that lives beneath your waking thoughts. In this quiet descent, your heartbeat becomes the rhythm of a distant drum. It keeps time as your body releases itself to gravity. Muscles relax, eyelids grow heavy, the mind sinks deeper. You do not notice the moment you cross over, but something within you knows. The waking world withdraws, leaving behind only the echo of its rules, and you begin to drift through a place made entirely of you. In the world of dreams, there is no past or future. There is only movement, fluid, unpredictable, and alive. You can stand in two places at once, speak to people who no longer exist, and travel across landscapes that have never been mapped. A mountain rises from the surface of the sea. A childhood home grows from a single thought. The air smells of memory. The ground feels like emotion. You are both the observer and the creator, the traveler and the terrain. Scientists call this passage hypnagogia, the threshold of sleep. It is the mind's first rehearsal before the full immersion of dreaming. Here, logic begins to soften, and the strict architecture of reality starts to bend. The brain's alpha waves slow into theta rhythms, gentle oscillations that lull your awareness like a rocking cradle. Ideas merge, dissolve, and recombine. The border between truth and invention blurs. Some people see patterns of light behind their eyelids. Others hear faint voices or melodies. It is not madness. It is imagination awakening in the absence of control. The same neural pathways that build your reality each day now begin to play freely. Painting without rules. It is in this strange liminal state that inspiration sometimes visits uninvited, a line of poetry, a melody, a sudden understanding of something you have been trying to remember. Dreaming, in its earliest breath, is not chaos but creation in motion. The body becomes heavy, yet the mind feels light. Your breathing aligns with an invisible rhythm, a pattern older than speech. The senses that kept you anchored to the outside world now turn inward. The ticking clock disappears. The world outside your skin fades into the hum of the stars. The body sleeps, but the mind, quiet, curious, and infinite, opens a doorway. Through that doorway lies a landscape with no boundaries. It stretches beyond geography, beyond language, beyond reason. You can walk across the surface of water, breathe underwater, or touch light like silk. You can hear the voices of those you have lost or see versions of yourself that never existed. Time collapses into a single glowing thread, looping endlessly through the heart of the dream. Every culture has given this borderland a different name. The Greeks called it onirokosmos, the world of dreams. Ancient Egyptians believed it was the place where the soul traveled each night to speak with the gods. In certain indigenous traditions, dreams are not separate from life. They are a second existence that balances the first. And in the quiet rooms of modern neuroscience, electrodes trace the same ancient mystery through the electrical storms of sleeping brains. When you dream, you are at once scientist and poet, observer and creator. The mind does not rest, it rearranges. It sorts through the clutter of the day, discarding what no longer matters, weaving what remains into stories that feel almost real. Every night, billions of neurons hum together in a symphony of restoration, rebuilding the fragile architecture of memory. To dream is to remember in color. There is something sacred about this nightly surrender. You cannot force a dream, nor can you predict it. It comes when the mind grows quiet enough to listen. Perhaps that is why dreams feel so deeply personal. They are messages written in the language of symbols, translated by emotion rather than logic. When you awaken, the details vanish like smoke, but the feeling remains. The dream's memory lives not in words but in sensations, the warmth of someone's smile, the taste of rain, the echo of flight. Every night, you dissolve into that hidden world and return, reborn, each morning. And though the world insists that sleep is a pause, in truth it is an act of becoming. The self you wake with is never the same one that closed its eyes. Something changes in the quiet between. Dreams, after all, are not escapes, they are returns. Returns to the deepest version of yourself, to the raw matter of your thoughts, to the place where your mind and universe share the same silence. As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, imagine that door opening again, the one that stands just behind your eyelids. Step through it gently. Let the waking world recede like low tide. You are entering a landscape where the laws of physics yield to the laws of wonder. In a few moments, you will no longer be here, and yet you will be everywhere you have ever been. The stars above your head are only reflections of the sparks within your mind. The same forces that shaped galaxies are shaping your dreams. And so, with each slow breath, you descend, not downward, but inward, into the quiet cathedral of your own imagination. This is where the story begins. When the body begins to drift into sleep, an ancient rhythm awakens. It is a cycle older than civilization, written into the flesh of every living thing. From the beating of a whale's heart deep in the ocean to the quiet pulse of a human resting beneath the stars. Sleep is nature's most patient ritual. It is not a retreat, but a recalibration, a conversation between the mind and the body, spoken in the language of rhythm and silence. In the beginning, your senses slowly withdraw from the outer world. The hum of sound fades. Muscles loosen. Temperature drops. The hypothalamus, a small almond-shaped structure at the base of your brain, begins to signal that it is time. It lowers your core temperature by fractions of a degree, releases melatonin into your bloodstream, and turns down the brightness of consciousness like a dimming light. The eyelids flutter. The body surrenders. Scientists have long divided sleep into stages, like movements in a symphony. There are 4 in total, repeating in cycles that last about 90 minutes each. The first stage is light, almost fragile. The second is deeper, where awareness drifts further away. The third is slow wave sleep, the body's sanctuary of healing. And finally, there is the one that seems least restful but most alive: REM sleep. The stage of dreams. As you move through these stages, your brainwaves change their rhythm. During wakefulness, the mind hums with rapid beta waves, short, busy bursts of energy used for thought, calculation, and survival. But as you close your eyes, beta softens into alpha, a slower rhythm that feels like floating between two currents. From alpha, you slip into theta, a dreamy pulse that connects the waking mind with the subconscious. By the time you reach delta, the deepest stage, the waves become long and rolling, like the slow breath of the sea. In those depths, the body works quietly to repair itself. Cells divide and renew. Muscles rebuild from the strain of the day. The immune system strengthens, scanning for broken code and rewriting it. The pituitary gland releases growth hormone, mending what time has worn. To an observer, sleep appears as stillness, but beneath the surface, it is orchestral movement, a biological symphony playing in absolute darkness. The brain, too, is never silent. Even in sleep, it consumes nearly as much energy as when awake. The difference lies in direction. Awake, the brain faces outward, interpreting light, sound, and language. Asleep, it turns inward, sorting through memory, emotion, and dreams. During deep sleep, it performs a vital act known as synaptic pruning. Every day, millions of connections form between neurons, some meaningful, others transient. While you sleep, the brain reviews them all, keeping what matters and quietly dismantling the rest. It is an unseen act of editing that makes space for tomorrow's learning. Imagine your brain as a vast library. Each day, countless new pages are written, conversations, faces, sensations, worries, and fleeting thoughts. By nightfall, the shelves are overflowing. In the dark, the brain's librarians go to work. They file the stories that deserve to last, clear out the noise, and stitch related memories together. When you dream of your childhood home, it may not be nostalgia, it may be the hippocampus integrating fragments of memory, repairing the architecture of the past. This is why dreams often borrow from reality yet reshape it. Your mind is not replaying the day, it is remixing it, rebalancing emotion and thought in a way that feels symbolic. What seems like fantasy is often the brain's way of restoring emotional equilibrium. During REM sleep, something astonishing happens. Although your muscles are temporarily paralyzed, your brain activity spikes. The EEG readings begin to resemble those of an awake person. The eyes dart rapidly beneath closed lids, hence the name. Rapid eye movement. It is as if the brain, unshackled from the body, begins to roam free. The limbic system, seat of emotion, glows with activity. The visual cortex lights up, painting vivid scenes that the rational mind can no longer censor. And somewhere deep inside, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic and control, grows quiet, allowing impossible stories to unfold without question. This is why in dreams you accept what cannot be. You can fly, speak to the dead, or travel across decades without resistance. The gatekeeper has fallen asleep. The artist has taken over. To understand the science of sleep is to realize that the body and mind are not separate. They are partners in an ancient dance. As the brain cleanses itself, the heart slows to a whisper. The liver filters, the lungs synchronize with the pulse, and the body becomes a single instrument playing a lullaby of biology. Even the blood shifts its flow, prioritizing the organs that heal and the brain regions that dream. Neuroscientists have discovered that during sleep, cerebrospinal fluid flows through the brain in rhythmic waves, washing away toxic byproducts of wakefulness. This cleansing tide, known as the glymphatic system, is like an invisible ocean moving through the skull. Without it, the mind would drown in its own noise. Every night, this fluid tide rises and falls, sweeping through the neural valleys like moonlit water, carrying away the debris of thought. The more we learn about sleep, the more it reveals itself not as a pause in life but as its foundation. Deprive a human of food, and they will survive for weeks. Deprive them of sleep, and the mind begins to fracture in days. Without rest, memory dissolves, emotion distorts, perception blurs. Sleep is not a luxury, it is the architecture that holds reality together. Animals follow the same quiet law. Dolphins sleep with one half of their brain awake, allowing them to surface for air. Birds shut down each hemisphere alternately, maintaining vigilance against predators. Even the tiniest fruit flies show brain patterns that echo human sleep cycles. Nature's insistence on rest is universal. It is written into the physics of survival. Yet the mystery of dreaming still lingers at the edge of science. We know the mechanisms, the waves, the chemistry, the electrical storms, but the reason we dream remains a whisper. Some theories suggest that dreams help the brain simulate future challenges, a kind of mental rehearsal for survival. Others see them as emotional therapy, allowing us to process unresolved feelings. And some believe they are simply the mind's natural byproduct, a flickering film projected by the sleeping brain with no deeper meaning. But perhaps meaning does not have to be singular. The science of sleep shows us the machinery. Dreams remind us of the poetry. One without the other would be incomplete. There is a quiet beauty in realizing that every night, while the world sleeps, each of us performs this ancient ritual of forgetting and remembering. Beneath the moon's indifferent gaze, billions of minds flicker in synchrony, their REM storms lighting up the night like hidden constellations. Somewhere, a child dreams of flying while an old man dreams of walking again. Somewhere else, two strangers who will never meet in life share the same dream landscape without knowing it. Sleep connects all of us. It is the world's most universal ceremony, repeated endlessly in darkness. The stars above us are not alone in their silence. Every sleeper is a star turned inward, glowing quietly in the dark. And when morning comes, and you open your eyes, the brain reawakens with the residue of the dream still clinging to its edges. The transition is gentle but profound. The neurons resume their waking rhythm. The logic returns. But deep down, the landscape you just left, the one built of light and emotion, remains alive, waiting for night to come again. Every dream begins in science, but it ends in mystery. Between those two lies the human soul, endlessly curious, endlessly creating. Dreams are the oldest form of language known to the mind, a way of speaking that existed long before words. In sleep, the mind abandons the structure of grammar and the logic of daylight thought. Emotion becomes the syntax, memory becomes imagery, and sensation becomes sound and color. When you dream, you are not telling a story in sentences but expressing feelings through scenes that unfold without rules. Fear may take the shape of falling through endless air. Longing may appear as the sudden return of someone you have lost. Joy may come as light that floods through invisible windows. Each image is a sentence written in the private alphabet of the soul. Inside the sleeping brain, a storyteller awakens. It is the subconscious, quiet during the day, that now becomes the author and director of an inner cinema. It draws upon fragments of experience and weaves them into patterns that follow emotional truth rather than logic. Neuroscientists have watched this process unfold in the laboratory. During REM sleep, the regions responsible for emotion and memory ignite like constellations, while the rational parts that enforce order grow dim. The result is a landscape where feelings are free to speak in their native form. The mind paints with its own colors, unconcerned with whether they make sense. Within that secret world, the hippocampus and amygdala become collaborators. The hippocampus gathers and stores the traces of the day, sorting through the chaos of perception, while the amygdala adds tone and feeling, staining every image with fear or tenderness or nostalgia. The result is a living language that moves without grammar, where scent becomes memory and sound becomes shape. In dreams, time bends back on itself. A childhood memory may blend with a future hope, and the border between what has happened and what might happen disappears entirely. The dream is not a sequence but a spiral, always folding inward toward emotion. There is no dream quite like another. Yet the symbols we meet often echo across cultures. People who have never spoken to each other share the same recurring visions of flying, falling, running, or standing before others unprepared. It is as if the human mind carries a set of ancient metaphors that rise unbidden in the dark. The psychologist Carl Jung believed that beneath each individual psyche lies a shared ocean of imagery, a collective unconscious from which all symbols emerge. In this ocean, every dream is a wave that carries both the self and the species. In the language of dreams, the self divides and multiplies. You are the observer and the actor, the writer and the audience. Each person who appears is a fragment of your own mind given form, each setting a reflection of your emotional landscape. The street you walk through may be made from the geometry of your thoughts. The stranger you meet may be a feeling wearing a face. The dream translates your inner weather into image. When the inner world storms, the sky inside the dream cracks open. When peace arrives, the air glows with impossible light. Scientists have long noticed that the texture of dreams changes with emotion. In times of upheaval, when the waking life feels uncertain, the subconscious speaks louder. The stories of the night become urgent, vivid, filled with motion. It is as though the mind, unable to find harmony in daylight, turns inward to resolve its dissonance. When grief is buried, it surfaces as a lost friend who returns. When fear is denied, it becomes the shadow that chases you down unfamiliar streets. The dream gives shape to what the waking mind cannot yet name. Yet dreaming is not only a mirror, it is also a workshop. Many of the most brilliant insights of history were born in this quiet laboratory of sleep. The structure of molecules, the lines of music, the images that define art have all drifted up from the same sea. The sleeping brain rearranges what it knows, tests impossible connections, and sometimes stumbles upon truth. In the absence of judgment, imagination expands. The dreaming mind is not random, it is creative freedom unrestrained by reason. Artists and thinkers through time have learned to stand at the edge of this threshold. Some trained themselves to hover between waking and dreaming to catch the spark as it forms. They knew that the borderland of sleep is a place where the mind loosens its grip on certainty and lets beauty emerge uninvited. The surrealist who falls asleep holding a key. The scientist who wakes with an answer written across the inner eye. The musician who hears a melody that did not exist before. All of them are translators of this silent language. The meaning of symbols within dreams cannot be fixed because they belong to emotion, not to logic. The door that opens may not mean the same for two people. For one, it is escape. For another, it is opportunity. The water that floods a room may cleanse or drown depending on the feeling it carries. The dream does not define. It reveals. It allows opposites to exist together. The same way love and loss share a single breath. In that paradox, the dream's language becomes infinite. Modern science, with its electrodes and measurements, can trace the patterns of this process, but it cannot fully interpret it. Machines can record the movements of the eye and the rhythms of the brain, but they cannot measure wonder or fear or longing. The true language of dreams lies beyond data. It is written in the space between neurons, in the resonance of feeling itself. Every time you awaken with a lingering sense of awe or melancholy, it is because a dream has spoken to you in a way that words never could. In ancient times, people built temples for dreams. The sick would sleep beneath sacred ceilings hoping to see visions that revealed cures. The travelers of the desert listened to their nightly stories as guidance from unseen realms. Even now, though the modern mind prefers evidence, something in us still believes that a dream can whisper the truth. Perhaps that belief persists because part of us knows that consciousness is far larger than waking thought. The dream reminds us of that immensity every night. Dreaming is not a passive state. It is active translation, a nightly act of creation. When you dream, you are shaping emotion into meaning the way an artist shapes clay. The pulse quickens, the breath adjusts, the chemistry of the body shifts to mirror the imagined scene. The brain rehearses life again and again, ensuring that emotion and memory remain fluid. This is why, even though you may forget the story upon waking, you wake changed. The body remembers what the mind forgets. In this secret language, there is no distinction between symbol and sensation. They are one and the same. The dream is the voice of your own depths, speaking in the only dialect pure enough to hold emotion whole. Each night, without knowing, you return to fluency. The dream begins, and the mind begins to speak again in the language it was born to use. Dreams do not obey the logic of waking life. Yet within their apparent disorder lies a rhythm older than reason. Every night the mind builds a stage where memories, hopes, and fears perform together in silence. The actors change shape without warning. One moment you are walking through a field of golden grass, and in the next, you are underwater breathing effortlessly, feeling both confusion and peace. The transitions make no sense to the conscious mind, but to the dreaming one, they follow perfect sense because emotion, not logic, is the law here. The dream arranges scenes as a composer arranges notes, balancing tension and release until a feeling completes itself. In that unseen theater, images replace language. A door becomes a symbol for transition. A flight through the clouds becomes freedom. And a broken clock becomes the ache of lost time. These are not metaphors the mind chooses consciously. They arise spontaneously, formed by the chemistry of emotion and memory. The dreaming brain behaves like a poet, combining elements of life in patterns that convey mood rather than fact. What cannot be spoken in daylight finds shape in the darkness. When scientists record the activity of the sleeping brain, they see bursts of light across the regions that govern imagery and emotion. It is as if the inner eye opens while the outer world goes dim. The motor system quiets so that the body will not act out its visions. Yet inside, the same patterns of neural firing that accompany real movement and perception continue to blaze. The dream feels real because in that moment, It is real. The brain cannot tell the difference between imagined experience and physical experience. Both leave their trace upon the nervous system. That is why you can wake trembling from a nightmare or smiling after a tender vision. The body has lived through those moments. Your pulse raced, your breath shortened, your muscles responded. The dream is rehearsal, experiment, therapy, and confession all at once. It allows the psyche to experience safely what might overwhelm it in waking life. It is the mind's way of digesting emotion the same way the body digests food. Without that nightly digestion, the spirit would become heavy. The content of dreams often carries fragments of the day before, but they are never exact copies. A conversation overheard becomes a landscape. A worry transforms into a chase. A fleeting joy becomes sunlight pouring through a window that does not exist. The brain takes the clay of experience and reshapes it to express what cannot be spoken directly. What matters is not the event itself but its emotional residue, the vibration left behind after contact with life. In this way, dreams are a form of emotional equilibrium. When the mind grows burdened, they lighten it. When feelings remain unresolved, they offer rehearsal until harmony returns. People who are deprived of REM sleep become irritable and disoriented because they have been denied this silent medicine. Even in the most mechanical reading, dreams serve as therapy that nature gives freely every night. The dream also plays a subtler role. It teaches the mind flexibility. Within the dream, boundaries dissolve. You can be many selves, live many lives, inhabit many emotions without consequence. The brain learns to move between states, to imagine possibilities beyond the familiar. This plasticity nourishes creativity and resilience. The child who dreams vividly often learns easily. The adult who dreams deeply remains imaginative. Dreaming trains the mind to think in metaphor, and metaphor is the seed of invention. Artists throughout time have tried to capture that elusive glow that surrounds dream memory. The moment you wake, the details scatter like startled birds. But the feeling remains. You remember not what happened but what it meant. Painters try to catch that feeling in color. Musicians translate it into sound. Writers chase it through words that never quite hold. The dream resists capture because it belongs to a realm where everything is in motion. To fix it would be to still its breath. The language of dreams continues to shape waking thought even when you do not recall the stories. Subconsciously you carry the lessons they leave. You wake calmer after a stormy night because your mind has already lived through the storm in safety. You wake inspired because the imagination has traveled paths you did not know existed. The creative energy that fuels life often rises from that invisible source. Scientists call this process memory consolidation, but there is poetry hidden inside the term. The mind does not simply file memories, it blends them, coloring them with emotion until they become part of who you are. This fusion of memory and feeling is what gives identity its depth. Without it, you would wake each day as a blank slate. With it, you wake as a continuation of all your lived and dreamed experiences. The dream therefore sustains the continuity of self. Even the nightmares serve a purpose. They are the body's way of confronting fear in a controlled environment. They push you to face the darkness within and measure its boundaries. When you awaken from one, shaken but safe, your brain learns that survival is possible. You are stronger for having lived through a terror that was never real yet felt utterly true. The next time fear visits in daylight, it carries less power. In this sense, even the cruelest dream is an act of protection. Dreams also serve connection. Though private in experience, They are universal in essence. Across time, every human being has drifted through that same inner ocean. The symbols differ, but the current is shared. When you hear another speak of their dream, you recognize something of your own. The imagery may change, but the emotion underneath is the same. The dream reminds you that consciousness is collective, that beneath the surface of individuality there is a shared landscape made of wonder and longing. To speak of the language of dreams, then, is to speak of the language of being itself. It is the voice that whispers beneath thought, the music that plays beneath speech. Every night it calls you back to that inner shore where you are both infinite and small, both the creator and the created. It teaches you to listen not with the ears but with the heart. And when you awaken, even if the images vanish, something remains, a trace of stillness, a mood without name, a fragile beauty that follows you into morning. That is the afterglow of the dream's language, the echo of the mind's most ancient tongue. In that moment, as the world returns and light fills the room, you are reminded that sleep is not silence but conversation. The dream has spoken, and your soul, without words, has answered. There is a moment that comes after the dream, when you lie still and the images begin to dissolve. You try to remember what they meant but they slip away, leaving only the feeling behind. The mind awakens and tries to translate that feeling into words, but language falters. It is then that you realize how deep the dream truly was, how far beneath thought it lived. What remains is an echo, a vibration that lingers like a memory you never lived yet somehow still remember. In that faint echo lies the first hint that dreams are not accidents but messages written in the ink of the unconscious. For centuries, people have looked into the mirror of their dreams to understand the unseen parts of themselves. Long before neuroscience, there were dream interpreters, shamans, philosophers, and mystics who believed that the dream world was not separate from reality but another layer of it. To them, dreams were conversations with the soul. When Sigmund Freud began to study them scientifically, he called them the royal road to the unconscious. He believed that every image, no matter how strange, hid a desire or conflict disguised by the mind's protective veil. The dream, he said, was the mind's theater of compromise, where forbidden wishes found symbolic release. But Freud's world was made of boundaries, of rules drawn between the acceptable and the hidden. As time passed, others began to see dreams differently. Carl Jung listened more quietly and found that not every dream was born from repression. Some were born from wholeness, from the deep structure of the human psyche reaching for balance. He spoke of archetypes, timeless figures that live within us all: the child, the shadow, the wise one, the hero, the mother. When these figures appear in dreams, they do not simply represent personal memories, they are expressions of the collective human experience. Reminders that each person is part of a larger story. The shadow, for Jung, was the unseen self, the traits we deny or fear, the emotions we hide from daylight. It often appears in dreams as a stranger, an enemy, or a creature that chases us through dark corridors. The dream does not create this figure to torment us but to introduce us to what we have neglected. Every time you flee from something in a dream, you are running from a part of yourself. To turn and face it is to begin the slow work of integration, to allow light to touch the darkness within. Dreams, then, are not simply reflections of desire or fear. They are the language through which the psyche seeks harmony. When the conscious mind becomes too rigid, the dream restores flexibility. When it becomes too focused on control, the dream brings chaos. When it loses connection to emotion, The dream floods it with feeling. This balance is not punishment but healing. Modern science has begun to see hints of this ancient wisdom in its own language. Brain imaging shows that during REM sleep, the limbic system, responsible for emotion, fires intensely, while the prefrontal cortex, which governs judgment and self-control, quiets. It is as though the mind intentionally loosens its grip to let the heart speak freely. Psychologists studying trauma have found that people often replay difficult emotions in their dreams until they soften. Nightmares, while painful, can be the psyche's attempt to process what could not be faced in waking life. Over time, recurring dreams of fear can fade as the emotional charge dissolves, like a wound healing beneath the skin. In the deeper layers of dreaming, symbols emerge that are neither personal nor random. They are the shapes that consciousness takes when it looks at itself. Water, for instance, almost always carries emotion. It is the symbol of the unconscious itself. To dream of calm water is to feel inner peace, while turbulent seas often reflect conflict within. Fire burns and purifies. The house often represents the self, with each room containing memories or aspects of personality. Doors invite choice, stairs signify transformation, and mirrors ask questions about identity. The same image can hold different meanings depending on who dreams it. But the resonance remains universal because it speaks in archetypes, not words. Across cultures, the dream's language of symbols has been understood intuitively. Ancient Egyptians believed that dreams carried divine messages, and their priests kept libraries filled with dream interpretations. The Greeks saw dreams as bridges between gods and mortals. In the East, especially in Taoist and Buddhist traditions, dreams were treated as reflections of the fluidity of existence itself, a reminder that the boundary between waking and sleeping is an illusion. Even today, in quiet moments of reflection, you can feel how your dreams echo that same mystery, that life and dream might not be separate but two mirrors facing each other forever. When you wake from a powerful dream, notice how it changes your mood before your mind begins to explain it. The feeling arrives first. That feeling is the message. The vibration left behind from an inner dialogue too complex for words. It might carry sadness without cause, joy without reason, or a longing that cannot be named. It is the soul reminding you of its depth. Dreams also reveal the stories you continue to tell yourself. They show you what you believe to be true, what you resist, what you crave. Sometimes they contradict your waking convictions and reveal the opposite truth. The person who believes they are strong may dream of being powerless. The one who hides pain may dream of bleeding freely. The dream balances the narrative, restoring the self to something more honest. Each night, when you close your eyes, the conscious mind loosens its boundaries and the subconscious begins to speak. The dialogue between them is what creates meaning. Without dreams, the conscious mind would grow deaf to the whisper of the deeper self. The dream is both messenger and mirror, carrying fragments of you across the dark to deliver them safely to the dawn. In this sense, dreams are not just personal experiences but acts of connection between the inner and outer worlds. They remind you that reality is not made only of matter but also of perception. When you see a mountain in a dream, it may not exist in space, but the feeling of awe is as real as anything in waking life. The mind does not draw a line between imagination and existence. It experiences both as truth. To interpret a dream is not to decode it like a puzzle but to listen to it like music. You do not demand meaning from a symphony, you feel it. The same is true of dreams. Their language is not meant to be solved but absorbed. The moment you stop trying to pin them down, they begin to reveal themselves. And perhaps that is the secret. The dream speaks not to inform but to transform. As you sink deeper into the understanding of dreams, it becomes clear that they are not random stories flickering in the dark but reflections of the invisible currents that move through your waking life. The mind is a vast ocean and dreams are its tides. They rise and fall with emotion, shaped by the moonlight of memory and the gravity of experience. Every dream is a movement toward equilibrium, an attempt to bring what is hidden into harmony with what is known. Modern researchers have begun to notice that dreams follow a logic of healing rather than chaos. When the brain revisits painful experiences, it replays them in symbolic form, stripping away some of the fear so that the memory can be reintegrated without pain. It is as though the psyche is re-editing its own film, replacing the harsh light of trauma with the softer glow of acceptance. This is why many people who experience loss dream repeatedly of the person who is gone. The dream becomes a bridge between what cannot return and what still lives within. Each encounter softens the wound until grief can exist without breaking the heart. In this quiet way, dreaming is a therapy older than language. The emotional circuits that activate during sleep are the same ones used in empathy and compassion. When you dream, you practice understanding. You imagine, without knowing, what it means to feel from another perspective. The dream allows you to step outside yourself and back again. Reshaped, it is a rehearsal for the art of being human. Science has measured the rhythm of these inner storms. During REM sleep, heart rate fluctuates, breathing quickens, and the brain glows with bursts of activity. Yet the body remains still, paralyzed by design. It is a perfect paradox: motion within stillness, expression within silence. The dreamer becomes a vessel for meaning that flows beyond words. The body sleeps, but the soul continues its journey. Lucid dreaming offers a rare glimpse into this process. In those moments when awareness awakens inside the dream, you can feel both the creation and the experience unfolding together. You realize that the landscape responds to thought. That intention shapes reality instantly. For a brief time, the dreamer becomes both God and witness. The freedom feels infinite, yet fragile. For the more you try to control it, the faster it fades. Lucid dreaming teaches humility. It reminds you that the greatest beauty in dreams comes not from mastery but surrender. There is something sacred in that surrender. To dream is to release control, to trust the intelligence that guides the unseen. Each night you give yourself to this process without question. You lie down, close your eyes, and allow consciousness to dissolve. You let go of time, of name, of all the things that define you. What returns in the morning is not the same self that fell asleep. It is a renewed version, rewritten by the invisible hand of the dream. The ancients sensed this long before science could describe it. They believed that the dream was a passage through which the soul traveled, gathering messages from beyond. Whether those messages came from gods or from the depths of the mind made little difference. The effect was the same. The dreamer awoke changed. Even now, in an age of data and measurement, that change remains beyond explanation. The chemistry of transformation cannot be graphed. It can only be felt. When you dream of falling, it is not gravity that calls you but the sensation of release. When you dream of flying, it is the whisper of freedom the waking self has forgotten. When you stand before an endless sea, it is the reflection of your own depth. Every symbol carries both universal and personal resonance. The water that soothes one person might terrify another. The fire that destroys in one mind may cleanse in another. The meaning lives not in the image but in the feeling that arises when you recall it. Dreams are truthful in a way that waking life often is not. They do not lie or flatter. They show you exactly what you feel, even when you would rather not see it. They reveal desires you hide, fears you deny, hopes you have stopped believing in. Sometimes they whisper, sometimes they shout, but always they tell the truth as the soul understands it. That honesty can be unsettling. It can also be freeing. To study dreams is therefore not to dissect them but to listen. The mind is not a machine to be decoded but a living forest that speaks through rustling leaves. Each symbol is a tree, each feeling a wind that moves through its branches. When you approach the dream with curiosity rather than control, it begins to open. Patterns appear, emotions repeat, images evolve. You begin to see how the subconscious works not against you but for you, guiding you toward balance in its quiet, patient way. Even nightmares, those dark storms of the night, hold meaning. They are not punishments but signals. They arise when emotion builds pressure that has nowhere to go. By confronting you in sleep, the mind releases that pressure safely. The terror is the purge. The fear is the medicine. If you face the nightmare and let it pass through you, it loses its power. The dream's darkness turns to understanding, and you awaken lighter than before. This process of facing the shadow within is one of the oldest rituals of transformation known to humanity. In myths from every culture, heroes descend into darkness before they emerge renewed. The same journey happens every night inside the human mind. You travel into the underworld of your own psyche, confront its beasts, and rise again when the morning light touches your eyelids. It is no coincidence that awakening and enlightenment share the same word. Both mean to open one's eyes after the long night of illusion. Dreams, in this way, are spiritual practice disguised as rest. They ask nothing of you except to surrender. They give back insight, healing, and the quiet reminder that you are larger than you think. Beneath the surface of your mind lies an ocean that has never known fear. Every dream is a ripple upon that water. When you awaken, the images fade but the wisdom remains. The dream has spoken in symbols, and though you may not remember the story, you carry its essence. You move differently, feel differently, see the world with softer eyes. The mind that dreamed is still dreaming. Even in daylight, the border between sleep and waking is thinner than it seems. To understand the hidden meanings of dreams is to recognize that you live in two worlds at once. One is made of matter, the other of imagination. Both are real, and both are you. Each night you travel the bridge between them, carrying fragments of one world into the other, weaving them together into a single fabric of experience. You call one waking and the other dreaming, but to the soul, they are the same vast field viewed under different lights. And somewhere in that field, beyond the reach of science and explanation, the dream continues, quiet, endless, and luminous, speaking in the language of feeling, waiting for you to listen again when night returns. Every time you close your eyes, you return to a private universe. It is vast and silent and infinite, a cosmos built not of stars and dust but of thought and memory. Inside the skull, billions of neurons pulse with light. Each one sparks and fades in delicate rhythm, like distant suns communicating across endless space. The mind, in its sleeping state, mirrors the structure of the universe itself. It expands and collapses and cycles. It creates and dissolves. It dreams. If you could see the sleeping brain as it truly is, you would not find darkness but a glowing constellation. Every cell connects to thousands of others. And every connection flashes with meaning. The network of these filaments stretches farther than imagination, forming patterns of energy that resemble the cosmic web that binds galaxies together. It is no wonder that ancient mystics looked inward and saw infinity reflected there. They sensed what science would one day confirm, that the same laws shaping the heavens also govern the mind. As dreams unfold, this inner universe awakens. The brain becomes a cosmos in motion, rewriting its own laws with every thought. Within that landscape, time bends and expands, distance becomes suggestion, and identity dissolves. The dreamer becomes the dream, observer and creation fused together. In that unity, something profound happens. The illusion of separation vanishes. You realize, even if only for a moment, that you are not an island but part of the vast continuum of existence. No different from the stars that burn above. Neuroscience has shown that during dreaming, electrical waves travel through the cortex in patterns that mimic storms of energy. These waves sweep across the brain like solar winds, carrying impulses that ignite imagination. Every image, every sound, every fleeting sensation is made of these tiny bursts of electricity. They are the atoms of consciousness, the elemental particles of the self. From their dance arises an entire universe of experience, mountains, oceans, memories, and love, all contained within the fragile boundary of the human mind. The philosopher's question, what is real, takes on a quiet new meaning here. When the dream feels true, when the touch of a loved one in that other world feels as warm as daylight, where does reality end? Perhaps the brain does not simply invent the dream but translates vibrations from deeper dimensions of existence. Perhaps the dream is not illusion but another frequency of truth, tuned differently from waking life. The heart believes what the intellect cannot explain. The dreamer senses a connection to something larger, something that breathes through both sleep and wakefulness. Across cultures, people have always felt this link between the mind and the cosmos. The ancients told stories of the world being dreamt into being by divine consciousness, of gods who dreamed stars into the sky and oceans into motion. In certain Buddhist teachings, all reality is seen as the dream of the universal mind, each soul a ripple within that eternal meditation. The mystic and the physicist, standing on opposite shores of understanding, are both describing the same sea. One calls it energy, the other calls it spirit. Both mean the same boundless field of being. When you look at the night sky, you are gazing at light that has traveled millions of years to reach you. In that same moment, deep inside your brain, similar light pulses from one neuron to another, completing a circuit that allows you to perceive it. The cosmos you witness and the consciousness that perceives it are reflections of one another. The outer and the inner are two faces of the same infinite mirror. The stars exist so that you may remember what you already are. To dream, then, is to participate in creation. Every scene that rises in the mind is an act of genesis. The mountains and rivers of your dreams are not less real than the stars. They are made of the same fundamental material, energy organized by awareness. The distinction between outer and inner space dissolves when you understand that both are shaped by perception. The universe within is as real as the one beyond, for they are not two realms but one continuous mystery observed from different angles. When you awaken from a dream and feel that lingering sense of awe, what you are feeling is the echo of this truth. You have touched infinity for a brief instant and returned. The mind, humbled by its own vastness, carries the residue of that encounter into the morning. The feeling is quiet but undeniable, like the memory of a place you cannot name yet somehow know. In the ancient language of Sanskrit, the word for the universe, Brahmanda, means the cosmic egg, the infinite contained within a finite shell. The same symbol appears in the embryo of the dreamer, curled in sleep, glowing softly with inner light. Each night you return to that state, forming and dissolving worlds inside your consciousness. To sleep is to be born again into the cosmic egg, to experience the cycle of creation and dissolution in miniature. The dream, in its gentle mystery, is the universe practicing itself through you. The more you reflect on this, the more the boundaries blur. Perhaps the mind does not exist inside the body, but the body exists inside the mind. Perhaps the stars above are not distant objects but expressions of the same field of awareness that gives rise to thought. When you look at the Milky Way, you are seeing yourself expanded across light years of time. When you close your eyes, the same light burns behind the eyelids, rearranged into the intimate constellations of your private sky. Both are real, both eternal, both speaking the same silent language of creation. And so, in every dream, there is a quiet reminder that you belong to something infinite. You are the observer and the observed, the star and the dreamer of stars. The heartbeat you hear in the dark is the rhythm of the cosmos echoing within the fragile walls of your chest. You are not apart from it. You are it, experiencing itself for a fleeting moment called a lifetime. If you could watch a single neuron fire inside the brain, you would see a pulse of light that lasts less than a heartbeat. It flashes, connects, and vanishes. Yet in that instant it participates in the birth of thought, emotion, and awareness. Now imagine billions of these sparks flowing together, weaving a storm of light that forms everything you know to be yourself. This is not so different from the night sky, where stars flare and fade across the canvas of time. Both the neuron and the star obey the same laws of motion, the same hunger for connection, the same rhythm of birth and decay. The dream, then, is not merely the play of mind but the echo of the universe remembering itself. During sleep, when consciousness turns inward, the boundaries between mind and cosmos soften. The electrical hum within your skull resonates with the hum of galaxies. Your breathing aligns with invisible tides that move through the fabric of space. The stillness you feel as you drift deeper is not the absence of motion but participation in a greater silence that binds all things. The dream is the bridge between the human and the infinite, allowing one to feel the pulse of the other. In ancient texts, the microcosm and the macrocosm were said to mirror each other. The body was seen as a reflection of the cosmos, each organ a planet, each cell a star. Modern science, without meaning to, has confirmed this poetic truth. The structure of neural networks resembles the cosmic web that threads through the universe. The distribution of galaxies follows the same mathematical patterns that govern the firing of neurons. It is as if creation uses the same design in both directions, from the smallest to the vastest scales, whispering that the pattern is one. When you dream, you step into that pattern consciously. The imagery that arises, mountains made of light, cities suspended in clouds, oceans without shore, is not random invention but a symbolic reflection of the universe's own geometry expressed through human perception. The dreamer is both a witness and a participant in the unfolding of cosmic art. Even the silence between dreams carries meaning. It is the dark matter of consciousness, unseen yet essential. Between one image and the next lies the same nothingness that stretches between stars. A quiet space where potential gathers before becoming form. To rest within that silence is to experience the origin of all things. It is the mind returning to its source, the eternal pause before creation begins again. Sometimes, in dreams, you encounter light that seems alive. It does not illuminate something else, it simply is. It feels familiar, intimate, like a memory from before birth. Many who have felt this light describe an overwhelming sense of belonging, as if the universe itself were breathing through them. Science might call it neural activity, a surge of synchronized firing in the visual cortex. But the experience carries something beyond explanation, a sense of unity that transcends measurement. In that moment, you understand that consciousness is not trapped inside the brain but expands outward, woven into the fabric of reality itself. To dream is to touch that fabric without fear. The boundaries that define self and world dissolve, and what remains is awareness alone, vast and luminous. Some traditions call this the great sleep of the divine, the state from which all existence arises. In that cosmic sleep, everything that will ever be already is. Each dream, no matter how small, is a ripple across that infinite sea, a temporary shimmer that reveals the depth beneath. The physicist who studies quantum fields might speak of probabilities and wave functions. But what they describe is not far from what the dreamer experiences. At the smallest scales, reality exists in a haze of potential until observed. In the mind, imagination works the same way. Images remain formless until attention gives them shape. Observation collapses possibility into presence, just as dreaming collapses feeling into form. Consciousness, it seems, is both the observer and the creator, forever giving birth to its own reality. When you awaken from a vivid dream, you may feel that you have traveled somewhere far away. Yet all along, you were within yourself. The landscapes you crossed were drawn by thought. The voices you heard were echoes of your own mind speaking in unfamiliar tones. Still, the emotions were real, the beauty undeniable. In the same way, the universe may be dreaming itself through you. Your life, your thoughts, your desires, all are the dreams of the cosmos exploring its own possibilities. The more you contemplate this, the softer the boundary between human and infinite becomes. You begin to sense that the same intelligence that spins galaxies also beats within your chest. The same mystery that moves oceans also moves your breath. You are not a fragment of the universe looking outward. You are the universe looking inward, discovering itself through eyes that will one day close and return to its source. Every night, when sleep takes you, you return to that source. The dream is a rehearsal for that final surrender, a reminder that letting go is not the end but transformation. In the dream, death and birth lose their meaning. You dissolve into light, reform as thought, drift across memory, and awaken again as someone new. This cycle repeats endlessly, both in the mind and in the cosmos. Creation and dissolution entwined in eternal rhythm. To feel this truth is to find peace. When you understand that the universe within and the universe beyond are one, fear fades, the unknown becomes familiar, and even the silence of death becomes another kind of dreaming. You realize that you have never been alone. For everything that exists shares the same origin, the same pulse. The dream is simply the reminder that what you seek has always been within. So when you close your eyes tonight and the darkness gathers, remember that you are entering not emptiness but infinity. Every breath is a star being born. Every heartbeat is the universe expanding and contracting through you. And somewhere, beyond the noise of thought, the eternal dream continues, endless and serene, carrying you gently through the ocean of yourself. Morning comes softly, not with noise but with light. It filters through the edges of the curtains, slow and golden, and touches the world awake. Somewhere outside, a bird stirs in the cool air, its song barely more than a whisper. You lie still between two worlds, feeling the dream begin to fade. The shapes that felt infinite just moments ago dissolve like mist at the edge of dawn. Yet a strange calm lingers, a sweetness left behind by the night. You have returned from the ocean of sleep carrying traces of its salt upon your skin. The first breaths of morning are always different after a deep dream. They feel larger, fuller, as if the lungs remember the rhythm of the universe they once mirrored. You open your eyes and the familiar world reappears. But something in you has changed. The mind that left to wander among stars has come home renewed. It carries within it a quiet understanding that cannot be spoken, only felt. The dream, though gone, has done its work. It has mended, revealed, balanced, and released. There is a tenderness in waking slowly. The body remembers its weight. The heart remembers its name. And the mind rebuilds the fragile barrier between reality and imagination. Yet the barrier is thinner now, more transparent, as though the light of the unseen world still glows faintly through it. Every sound seems deeper, every color softer. The morning light is not separate from the light that filled your dreams. It is simply another form of the same radiance. Scientists say that during waking, the brain shifts its rhythm once again. Theta waves give way to alpha, then to beta, marking the return of analytical thought. But something of the dream remains, hidden in the slower pulse of the heart and the lingering chemicals of emotion. The line between sleeping and waking is less a boundary than a conversation. One world hands its memories to the other, and together they complete the circle of consciousness. When you awaken gently, you bring back not just fragments of imagery but fragments of truth. The dream reminds you of the language your soul speaks when the mind is quiet. It tells you that imagination is not an escape from life but its reflection. That emotion is a compass pointing toward what truly matters. That fear and love are not opposites but two halves of the same current moving through every living thing. You may forget the dream's details, but its meaning remains in the way you move, the way you listen, the way you see. The ancients understood waking as a sacred act. In some cultures, people rose in silence, allowing the mind to reassemble slowly so that the wisdom of sleep would not scatter too quickly. They greeted the dawn as they would a guest from another realm, offering gratitude for the safe return of the soul. To them, morning was not merely the beginning of another day but the continuation of an eternal rhythm, the breath of life inhaling and exhaling through all existence. Even in the modern world, that rhythm remains. Every morning, billions of people rise and begin again, unaware that each awakening is a small resurrection. The heart, which slowed during the night, beats faster as it welcomes the warmth of light. The eyes, which wandered through inner space, open to the outer one. The same intelligence that guided you through dreams now guides you through daylight. The boundary between inner and outer, between thought and form, between spirit and body, is as thin as the breath that passes between them. Perhaps that is why waking feels both ordinary and miraculous. It is the same act repeated since the beginning of life, the return from darkness to light, from stillness to motion, from the silence of the infinite to the hum of the world. Each time it happens, the universe rediscovers itself through you. The sunlight on the wall, the sound of footsteps in another room, the heartbeat in your chest. These are not separate events but the same consciousness appearing in many forms. As you rise from the bed, You carry the residue of the dream with you. Invisible but potent. It colors your mood, shapes your thoughts, influences the smallest decisions. Sometimes it gives you courage. Sometimes patience. Sometimes only a trace of wonder that follows you through the day. Even without memory, the essence of the dream continues to live, woven into the rhythm of waking life like threads of light hidden beneath the fabric of thought. When evening comes again, and you return to sleep, the circle will begin anew. You will drift once more into that other world, guided by the same invisible tide. The mind will open its gates, and the universe within will unfold like a flower under starlight. You will dream again, and in those dreams you will live 1,000 quiet lives, each one teaching, healing, remembering. It is comforting to know that the self you are in daylight is not the whole of you. Beneath the thoughts and roles and names, there is a deeper consciousness that never sleeps. It watches through your eyes, breathes through your lungs, and waits patiently each night to meet you again in the dream. There, it speaks in images, not to confuse you but to remind you of what you have forgotten, that you are both the dream and the dreamer, both the ripple and the ocean. When you finally understand this, waking becomes gentler. You no longer rush to leave the world of dreams behind. You carry its softness into your words, its silence into your thoughts, its beauty into your seeing. You begin to realize that all of life is a kind of lucid dream, shaped by attention, colored by emotion, constantly changing with perception. The world outside and the world within are mirrors facing each other, reflecting endless variations of the same light. The gentle awakening is not just the moment when your eyes open, it is the moment when your heart does. It is when you see the connection between all things, the way a sigh of wind resembles a breath, the way the clouds drift like thoughts, the way starlight and consciousness are made of the same shimmering substance. The more you notice, the more the boundary between self and world fades, until everything feels intimate, alive, and quietly divine. As the day brightens and the dream recedes fully, you can still sense its echo. It hums beneath the noise of the waking world, a reminder that the mystery never truly ends. Night and day, sleep and wakefulness, silence and sound, all are waves on the same ocean of being. You are carried by that ocean always, rocked gently between forgetting and remembering, between darkness and light. And when the night returns, as it always does, you will close your eyes again and fall softly back into the arms of that vast intelligence that dreams through you. The body will rest, the mind will wander, and the stars inside your skull will begin to glow once more. Somewhere between one breath and the next, the door will open, and the journey will continue, endless and serene. The dream never truly ends. It simply changes shape, moving from the inner to the outer, from night to day, from silence to sound. It is the rhythm of existence itself, the universe breathing through you. The soul learning itself again and again in infinite forms. And in that rhythm, there is peace. Sleep well, dream deeply, awaken gently.